Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Hospitality Huddles episode. And this week I thought I'd share with you a keynote that I gave last week at Anglia Ruskin University in the centre of London. It was with some of their hospitality students looking at innovation and entrepreneurship, and I gave my background in how I developed Auden Hospitality and what my career had taught me, and it left me with 4 key topics that I wanted to speak to the students about. So listen through it, see what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback. Remember, it was recorded live at the keynote, so the sound might be a little bit patchy in some places, but hopefully if you listen through, it'll add some great value to you as well, and you'll be able to take some key takeaways. So thank you once again for listening to Hospitality Huddles. Last month we had our best downloads ever, and it's because of people like you checking in every week to listen. So please know that I'm truly grateful, and I hope you like this week's episode.
So Scott's going to be with us for about an hour or so, and he's going to do his presentations. I'm sure Scott won't mind if you want to interrupt him in terms of asking questions, and then have plenty of questions at the end. And even thinking about, obviously not to put any pressure on, but even thinking about are the assignments and how maybe relevant we could use some of the material that Scott is talking about for the different things. Okay, so I'll leave you over to Scott. You're on.
Yep.
Scott, great. And are you okay with this?
This is good.
This is touchscreen as well if you want it, so you can go through your slides like that as well. Okay.
Hello everyone, nice to be here. I've worked in the industry 25 years. I want to fast forward you to 2015. I threw a 15-year career out the window. I'd lost faith. I wanted to do something different. The path I was on was completely the wrong one for me, and I needed to leave. When I was 16, I first started working in hotels. Worked in the best hotel in Leeds, which is my hometown. And from that moment on, I was hooked on the industry. But in 2015, after 15 years of working in luxury hotels, I got to a point where I was hotel manager number 2, opened a hotel in central London, and I realized that I'd lost my passion for being in hotels, and I didn't want to be a hotel GM anymore. And what I really loved was food and beverage, restaurants and bars. So I was sitting with mentors at the time, and I was having a conversation around, should I keep going on that track to be a hotel GM, because I'd been in university doing hotel management. I'd spent 15 years doing it, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do, looking at hotel GMs. So I decided to leave. I left hotels. I called my mum and I said, I'm leaving hotels. She thought I was bonkers, because I'd spent 15 years doing this. I'd been passionate. I think secretly she loved the penthouse suite. She used to come in every time she came to London. But it was the right thing to do. So I left hotels. I didn't only leave hotels. I went to go work in independent restaurants, but I also left the country, and I went to go work in the Middle East. I had a double whammy on that phone call to my mum. I'm leaving hotels. I've done this for all my career. And by the way, I'm going to the Middle East. We moved to Dubai, and I worked in independent restaurants in Dubai. And I always say independent restaurants is where I really learned how to run restaurants and bars. And we'll play that story a little bit more in a bit. 2015, I threw away 15 years in hotels, and I went to go work in independent restaurants. Worked in independent restaurants halfway through the time in Dubai, which was 5 years. We were invested in by a Saudi investment business. Our Saudi investment business they came in, they bought incubator brands, so they bought brands that maybe 1 or 2 locations, and then we went in there with our corporate backgrounds, and we went in and we put the expertise that they were lacking from their business into that business. So they would stay very much creative, but we would go in and we'd do the process, we'd do the scale, we'd make it franchisable, we'd go in and put processes around that meant we could put it into 4 different countries we were operating. In 2021, we obviously went through COVID. Toward the end of 2021, I was COO in the investment office, and I was managing 16 brands that had 85 restaurants over 4 countries. So Saudi, Kuwait, London, New York. And I was in the boardroom, and I was talking too often to the CEO, who had no food and beverage experience. His business was agriculture and real estate. I was having too many meetings with the investment officer, and I wasn't having enough conversations down on the floor where I really enjoyed being, which was making impacts on brands, service, experience. So in 2022, I left. it wasn't for me. I was in an investment office. I was talking about exit plans. I wasn't talking about how we do the next menu change or what the revenues were looking like, what the marketing was looking like. I did it again. I left. I just went on gut instinct. And I was walking around a park near where I live in Ealing, Gunnersbury Park, and I was walking around, and all of a sudden, for some reason, I came across that I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to take ownership of what my destiny was going to be. And I wanted to stop working for other people. And I wanted to stop believing that the way to get up the ladder was to go through the traditional means and get to corporate offices. And I wanted to start doing what I wanted to do for who I wanted to do it for and start making an impact on those people. So in 2022, I suddenly decided I didn't want to be an employee. I wanted to be an employer. And I set up my own business, which is Auden Hospitality. But I've never been more focused in what I'm doing now. And today I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to tell you the lessons that I've learned in 2 years of setting up my own business in probably one of the most toughest industries going. And in an industry that religiously hates consultants. And I'm a consultant. And we've had to look at how we break over that stigma and how we get past it and how we do that. A little bit about me, because I'm giving you the headlines, but a little bit about me, just so you understand I have some experience in what we're going to talk about today. 25 years now. But I worked at Dorchester Collection. We opened an Alain de Casse restaurant in Dubai. I opened the Intercontinental London Westminster, which is now Conrad St. James on St. James's Park. China Grill Management, which is brands Asia de Cuba, China Grill from New York. De Vere Hotels. We operate Red Farm today, which is a restaurant from New York as well. I worked with Dominic Ansel, so the guy who came up with the Chrono. We had the bakeries in London. Frederic Vardon, Michelin star chef in Paris. We opened a concession in the middle of COVID in Harrods. We worked with Kempinski. And we used to do all the catering from Badler in Abu Dhabi, which was in their national sports stadium. So 40,000 seat football stadium, 5,000 seat tennis stadium. We used to do all the hospitality, all the public catering, and everything that goes in between whenever there was a football match going on or tennis. And we used to do the warm-up to the Aussie Open. So we used to get all the big stars there once a year as well. When I was in the corporate environment, I probably left 6 months too late. And during that time, I became irritable. I was annoying. I didn't enjoy what I wanted to do. And I wanted to take some of what I learned from that and apply it and help other people understand that it's okay to just go, this isn't right. This isn't the right environment. Let's leave. I've been a Burnt Chef Project ambassador for a couple of years now, working with those guys to really look at how we can help hospitality become a better place to be for people who work within it. So we do a lot of talking around how we can improve well-being, how we can improve the way that people deal with mental health in the industry. And as part of that, a mental health first aider. And then worked in quite a few countries. So I think it's about 40, so quite a lot of other countries to come with that. And that's really given me quite a bit of experience as we start building my own business and start looking at how we can grow and scale and do other things as well. We're going to talk more about this later because it's a big part of the success of where Auden Hospitality has got to today. And that's very much around how we built the brand on social media. So 2.25 million impressions on LinkedIn. Some of you probably got that on a TikTok video, but it's fine. This is quite good for LinkedIn. 11,000 followers. We've got a newsletter that goes out to 57 countries. There's 4,000 people on that. And then we have a podcast, which a couple of things. One, we interview people who are real thought leaders in the industry to try and get their take on how we can do things differently. And the other one is we help bring some of our tangible ideas of what we do to work with clients, and we put it on podcast format, and it's very much treated as a business development tool, not as a vanity project, but we're on 1,000 monthly downloads on that one as well. And then just in numbers, so 25 years in the industry, over 50 projects completed during that time, 38 restaurant openings, 4 hotels, and 14 countries, much around the world that we've done. And then done some talks a bit like this. Did some stuff for IHG where we talked to F&B leaders, some stuff for the Burnt Chef Project. We've done some Q&As at the Hospitality Tech Expo. Podcast is an amazing way to get free marketing right now. Again, got onto some of those podcasts. And we, as we mentioned, we really focus on how at Auden we can control our message and we can control what we do, and we do that through some media formats in terms of the podcast and the newsletter. A little bit about Auden before I get into the real nooks and crannies about what I wanted to share today. Who are we and what do we do? So we help hoteliers think differently about their F&B to create outlets their guests will love. One of the things that I always say to people is I worked 15 years in hotels and I worked 7 years in independent restaurants. I learned more in the 7 years in independent restaurants than the 15 years in hotels about how to run food and beverage. So what I always talk about is how if we take that restaurant mindset back to hotels, but we have the understanding about breakfast and room service and meeting and events and all the nuances that go into it, we can have hotel F&B that's exciting and not what it is now, which is a bit bland and a bit beige, and it's more cost-cutting, it's more of a service function than it is something that's really exciting. So we really focus on that. What do? We do launches, we do concept development, we work with real estate and development teams when they're doing the hotel build to look at zoning. But one of our biggest things that we do is we go into existing properties, existing brands, and we look at where the opportunities are that they can change things and think a little bit differently, think more like restaurateurs, and help them improve what their F&B is. We've done things like underutilized spaces. We do a lot. We've created extra restaurants they didn't know they had. We put podcast studios into hotels. We put music studio into a hotel, retail stores into there. So we really look at how we can help them unlock extra revenue by going in and looking at the opportunities. And one of the big things for me that is really important, and this goes back to the bit about how the industry doesn't like consultants, is we also operate restaurants here in London today. And the reason we do that, and it's firm to my heart, is if I've got a message about restaurateurs think differently to hoteliers, if I am in restaurants anymore, it's really hard to stay ahead of the trend of what restaurants are doing. So we operate a restaurant in Covent Garden, and we do that so that when we sit opposite hoteliers and they're saying to us, food cost has gone through the roof, labour's really difficult, there's no talent on the market, utilities are going up, X, Y, Z, we can sit there and look them in the eye and go, I get it, because I'm dealing with it as well down the road, and guess what, I have £220,000 rent on the bottom of my P&L that you don't have, that I have to cover as well. So it really helps with that mindset of going to hoteliers especially, and getting them to understand that we know where we are and what we're doing and the expertise that we have. And then these are some of the people that we've worked with. The Harry we're still working with at the minute. The Social Hub is an amazing hotel group out of Amsterdam. Fox Hills is a country house hotel in Surrey. But again, we're working Red Farm's the restaurant that we're operating. We've worked with the Lebanese bakery. The Home is on Donkeys. They've just won Best Tacos in the UK. I had amazing reviews from Grace Den. We're working with them on an advisory basis as well. So that's a bit about me. That's the boring bit and about Auden. And I want to take you on more of the journey about what Auden was and how it came to what it is today. Because honestly, the way I articulate Auden today is definitely not been the case since 2022. And we've gone through a real journey. And I want to probably share some of the lessons about what we went through during those 2 years, rather than coming in and going to be a great entrepreneur is this, and because I'm not there. We're 2 years in. We're doing okay, but we're by no means where we want to be. So the first subject I want to talk about is finding your niche. And this has probably been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned during the 2 years of running Auden Hospitality. And the question around this is, what is your story? So whenever you're looking at whether it's a new concept, whether it's a new business, whether it's doing a promotion, an activity, a marketing, what is your story? And how do you tell that to your customer? In this case, we call it an avatar. So when we're looking at it, we're talking about what is your story? Who's your ideal avatar? Who's your ideal customer? Who are the people that you're wanting to talk to? And who are the people who are going to buy from you, more importantly, right? When I first set up on hospitality, I was like, I'm just going to be a restaurant guy. I'm going to do restaurants. I'm going to work with restaurateurs. Hotels, I made them come into my thinking that because I was like, there's loads of restaurants in the world. They're all cool. They're all going to need my help. In reality, hardly any of them had cash. Most of them were creative, and most of them were the guys who did that. And where I could have help is I could do the boring stuff back at the house, which was the like inventory and making sure the processes were in place and the finance people were doing what they should do. So if I'd probably asked myself this question right at the start, I probably would have realised that restaurateurs have no cash and don't actually need me to help them do the creative bit, and they're already ahead of the game anyway, back to what we were saying before. So really look at how you can niche down onto that, what is your ideal avatar? And how clear is your story? For everything that you do in terms of building a business, be able to explain it in one sentence. That how we help hoteliers think differently to create outlets that guests will love. One sentence. Work with hoteliers. If I'm a hotelier, I get it because I'm telling them. And what we're going to do, we're going to work on your F&B to make amazing F&B that your guests will love. So really make sure that your story is clear. The way to do it is, what I learned is you go to a child and you tell them what you do and if they understand. So I went to my 6-year-old son and I was like, listen, this is what I do. I work with hotels in very simplest form. I work with hotels to make amazing restaurants. And he's like, I get what you do, Daddy. So you work with the chef? Yeah, I work with the chef. Perfect. So then how do we make it sound a bit more fancy so it's not 5-year-old speak that? Can a child understand it? Because if they can, then your customer's going to understand it too. And what is the problem that you can solve? This was probably the one that I missed right at the start. I couldn't solve problems for restaurateurs, really. I could solve problems for the owners, but not the restaurateurs. And I was pitching at the restaurateurs when I was writing stuff on LinkedIn, when I did my brand profiles, when I did my website. I was saying like operators. I was like being really broad in the term. And I wasn't solving the operator's problem because they knew how to do it anyway. I was solving the investor's problem because they didn't know how to do it. But I wasn't talking to the investor. What's the problem that you can solve and who are you talking to? And then what do your customers want or need? So this is back to that whole thing again. Hotels are crap F&B in general, right? I got tagged in a post last night and it was a guy who was in Dijon and he was like, you've changed the way I look at hotel F&B because I'm sitting in my hotel F&B, I'm looking at opportunities around that we can improve because I watch your content all the time. When I first started out, I was talking to restaurants about helping them build restaurants, which is a bit crazy really when I think back to it now. I was telling a restaurateur I was going to help him build a restaurant. He already had that expertise. What do they want or need? Hotel GMs generally come up through the room side of things, so they don't have lots of experience in restaurants. So can they lead people who do restaurants? Yes, they're leaders, they're great leaders. The best GMs I've worked with are great leaders, but they don't know restaurants inside out. And more importantly, the last time the company ran a restaurant was probably 5-6 years ago, and it's a completely different world in terms of restaurants now than 5-6 years ago. So there's a real gap in the market being able to go and help hoteliers to do things different about F&B. And then the big one is focus on the details. So once you've got your message, once you've solved the problem, once you know what your customer is, focus on the details that are going to make you stand out from the crowd. And it's a real big thing of mine in terms of the way the brand looks and feels, the way we talk. When we're talking about the brand, we're not too egotistical, we don't show off that much. We kind of look at how we can solve problems rather than going, this is what we've done, and really look at how those details can make a difference. In hotels, for example, the biggest ego is in the office in the top. So if we come in with an ego, we're just competing with the guy at the top, and he's not going to like what we do. So we're the guys that come in and go, we're going to make you look a hero, because we're going to give you all the tools, and we're going to help you implement it. And then when you go sit in central office, you don't even have to tell him we've been here. We don't need that. We're good. We've helped you do what you need to do. If I want to share this video. I went to go watch Stephen Bartlett do his stand-up tour in, I think it was like February. And one of the big things that I took away from it, he was on stage for 2.5 hours. And one of the big things I took away from it was this video. And I wanted to share it with you because I think when we're talking about niche and talking about how you guys might position a business in the future, I think this sums it up perfectly to go, don't try and be too broad. Try and really focus on who you're talking to.
I just love how you said so many times focus. This is your keyword today.
Focus.
Focus.
Yeah, you have to be focused, right? Do you know why? Because the problem is when you run your own business, no one's keeping you on track. You have to keep yourself on track. There's no GM who can make sure you're doing all right. There's no one-to-ones with your boss and All right, you might have a coach, you might have a mentor, but you're the one who has to be focused. And the way that I've found the easiest way to do that is to develop a really strong belief and stay true to that belief all the time. And then that helps you stay on the mission. Because whenever I do something now, I go back to it and go, is it talking to hotels? Is it going to spread the message? And is it going to help people think differently? And that keeps me on mission. And if it doesn't answer those questions, I put it to the side.
Hi everyone, and I hope you're really enjoying this show. At this point, I showed Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO, a YouTube clip with the founder, Jane Werwand of Dermalogica. At this point, she talked about how you had to focus on the 20% and not the 80%. If you want to hear more about this, then in the show notes, I'll put a link to that recording, and it's a great example of how you should really niche down. So without further ado, let's get back on with the show.
Restaurants were my 80%, and I talked to no one. Hotels were my 20%, and since then my business has skyrocketed. I now employ people. So that one video rung so true to me. Just to look at how that looks again, I want to show you our journey. 2022 here, this was what was written in our very first deck. So food and beverage entrepreneurs to succeed in the sector in light of the exceptional difficulties in the thing. We're on a mission to elevate brands and create inspiring spaces that disrupt expectations and leave a long-lasting impact. And when I read it back the other day when I was doing this presentation, I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And honestly, the branding agency did this right at the start, and it probably proved. I wrote this one and then put it through ChatGPT to make it sound like a marketing agency had done it. But we're on a mission to help hoteliers think differently about F&B to create hours they love. It resonates through every project we undertake, whether we are implementing transformative opportunities within your restaurant, bar and lounges, so whether we go in and we help you find opportunities, providing guidance during a launch or creating a new strategy or concept, we approach every project with humility and collaboration. So it just reads much stronger in terms of what we are. Does anyone know the story of bamboo? No? Be like bamboo. Success doesn't happen overnight. This is one of the biggest things that I heard as well. Bamboo grows underground for 5 years before it sprouts. And then when it sprouts, it grows to the size that you see in about 8 months. So it takes 5 years to be able to get to a point where they can grow exponentially in 8 months. That's business. Definitely from my perspective. You have to build and build and build. And only then, when you've got real strong foundations, do you really see growth go. If you look at some of the most famous entrepreneurs, they've been doing it, they've been hustling for years, and then they get that one break at the right time, the right opportunity, the right moment, the right customer who needs them, the right opportunity, and that's when they skyrocket. Probably it was December 2021. I, for some reason, after working in the industry for 20 years, forgot that Christmas was the time that no one wanted to speak to anyone. And I was sat in my living room with zero business, like zero. And I was sitting there and thinking, okay, if I'm going to do something with this moment right now, I've been sitting here for Christmas, December with zero business. I've got to come out a bit stronger in January. And that's the moment I flipped to talking about hotels. And I went and spoke to old GMs, old mentors, old influencers on my career, and was like, what's my niche? What am I missing? And they all said to me, hotels inside out, that you don't think like hotels, you think like restaurants. And the more people said it to me, the more I thought, that's my niche. And that's then where I started building and building. And that's why I said to you, we're still on the journey. We're 2 years in, right? We're not there yet. But since we flipped in January 2022 to talking about hotels, now, as we go through, in 2023, now I employ people. We're working on more projects than we've ever worked on before. And we're working across different continents as well. So it really shows, be like bamboo and don't think that things come overnight. And when you're building business plans and looking at businesses, factor in it's going to take time. The second topic to talk about is embrace failure. In schools now, and I see it with my kids, We make failure a bad thing. Honestly, I've learned some of the best things from failing. The best restaurant I ever opened closed after 3 months because it failed. It wasn't because the food was bad. It wasn't because the ambience was wrong. It wasn't because the design wasn't right. It just didn't click with the market and it just didn't work. So my best restaurant we ever opened didn't work and closed the doors. And some of the restaurants where you looked at and thought, okay, they're good, but they're not amazing, were extremely successful and still there today because they just hit the right thing at the right time. So embrace failure. If you never try, then you never fail, especially in your own business. In your own business, you don't have to ask permission. You don't have to put business plans together. You don't have to create massive decks. You don't have to do any of this stuff. You can be agile. You can be fluid. You can try. You can experiment. If it goes wrong, it's your money. If it goes right, it's your money. Embrace failure. Don't worry about what if, because the cost of inaction can cost you a lot more. So don't worry about failing. Experiment, test, and innovate. And as you're doing it, get feedback. Stay objective about the feedback. Sometimes the feedback is right, sometimes the feedback is wrong. But listen to that feedback and then review. Review why something's not gone right. Iterate, so make the changes you need to make, and then go again. But fail fast is one of my biggest pieces of advice. If something isn't working, don't be stubborn. Don't be egotistical. Don't sit on failure because it'll cost you money and it'll impact the brand. Fail fast. Make quick decisions. And I think I thought one of the great things to do was we were working with past hotels. Every time we went into jobs, we were talking about supply chain and purchasing. And then I rang my supply chain director up and I was like, I've got this brilliant idea. We're working with all these people. Why don't we set up a procurement business on the side? Because we're already putting volume with suppliers as it is. So if we can get more volume, it can impact the customers we're working with, but we can also make some money on the side and almost a side hustle. Biggest mistake I ever made. Defocused the business, took our eyes off the ball, didn't work, and in reality, no one wanted it. Everyone wanted it, but no one wanted to buy it. So we just canned it. Took the website down, closed it down, took it out of the company's house, we'd set up a business, everything. We just canned the whole thing because it just was defocused and it wasn't working. So fail fast. And then learn from it. Don't make the same mistakes twice. Experiment and then repeat. Go again. Back to Stephen Bartlett, when we're in his talk, he has someone in his business who reports on experiments and then the business is measured on how many failures they have. And his idea behind it is if you're not failing enough, you're not trying enough different things. So it's really a big one here. And I think for me, don't worry about failing because it's the learnings that you'll take from it that will do it. I could have closed up shop in December 2023 when I had no business. Could have gone and got another job quite easily. I had people calling me, but I didn't. And I moved on. And I just tried to understand why I was sitting in December with no revenue. The next one is build a community. It's extremely lonely being an entrepreneur or having your own business or doing your own thing. You have to have people with you that can support you along the way. So building your community is really important. A few ways that I've done it as we've gone through. So connect with people ahead of you on the journey. Honestly, it's amazing how many people will go on a 30-minute Zoom call and talk to you about their experience. It's phenomenal. I spoke to COO of Marriott. Gave me 30 minutes on a Zoom call when I was emailing, going, we're looking at whether we can get into you guys, but want to ask a few questions about F&B. We're doing a collaboration now with Hotstats, with a global benchmarking platform for hotels, where we're going to write a white paper, and the COO did a 15-minute call with me, and then all of a sudden messaged me after a few weeks and was like, should we do something together? So speak to people ahead of you. People want to do it. You play to egos because people love it because they can talk about themselves for 30 minutes. And also people want to see success. So go onto social media, look at the people who are doing your field and have been doing it for a couple of years and just ask them if you can bounce some ideas off them or talk to them about what they've learned. It's amazing how many people will do it. Engage on social platforms. We're going to come to it in a minute about social platforms. But without quoting Gary Vee, they're free, right? It doesn't cost you a penny. And there's so much content on there in terms of people who you can network with. It's the new way to network. Content that goes on there, trends that are up and coming. So start today on social media, looking at what you want to be in future and start getting ahead of the game. Show up. So join free events, LinkedIn Lives, Clubhouse rooms, networking events in person, anything that you can get to show up. The more you show up, the more people will see you, and the more you can talk to people, so that when you actually come to setting up your own business, you've already got people to call and people to lean on when it comes to it, because people start seeing your face. I constantly I go twice a week to a LinkedIn live room called Digital Hospitality. It's people from all around the world. It's run by a guy in San Diego called Sean Walchef. He has a barbecue restaurant, but he also has a media company. And he does a lot of media for tech companies. And he has loads of people on there, like 20 people on there. He has a topic of the week. People go up, they talk about who they are and what they do, and then they talk about their experience. And it's amazing how much you learn from it, but also how much it helps you craft your message and what you're doing. I go to that twice a week. It's a bit of a pain because it's 6 o'clock, like hours time, but it's really good to go on there. There's stuff on Clubhouse that you can go on to. It's still alive in the background that you can just get and start listening to what people are saying, and then get a support group, support others and get others to support you, because it really helps and it's something to bounce off. Back to that bit about entrepreneurship being lonely. And then the final one that I want to go through today is the CV's finished. It's over. It's done. Yeah, people still have CVs, but every CV that I see is pretty boring, and I think it's done. I think there's a better way to do it. People buy from people. That's what I've learned from doing what I've done. When I first launched, everything was about Auden. We talked about Auden. Nobody cares about Auden. They're not bothered. They want to know about you. People buy from people. The easiest way to fill a restaurant is to have people in your restaurant. The hardest way to fill a restaurant is an empty one, because people don't want to be the first person to sit at a table. It's the same in business. We're a consultancy, right? We're a service-based business. People are buying our knowledge and our experience. They're not buying that from a brand. And I think if you listen to some of the big creators and the big entrepreneurs that speak out there, they all say the same. But I want to reiterate it today. So the old-fashioned CV is finished. It's done and dusted. They might see your CV and go, okay, that looks okay. The first thing recruiters will do, the first thing I do if I get CVs, I'll go online. And I'll go to LinkedIn. Then I'll go to Instagram. Then I'll go to TikTok. Why? LinkedIn is where people have a secondary CV. They might post a few updates. They might do a few things. Brilliant. Instagram is where they'll try and be pretty. So they'll post nice pictures and all the rest of it. And we'll start getting a little bit of a feel of what they're like. TikTok is where they'll let it out. They get on the video and they go raw and authentic. And that's where you see what people look like. And that's the journey I go on when I look at CVs. And I know recruiters, big recruiters, who do exactly the same thing. So you need to create an authority in your niche. So the biggest mistake, I was doing a podcast with a guy in Miami the other week called Steve Turk. And he was an ex-hotelier as well. He was a hotel manager. He works for Luce Hotel in Miami, in South Beach. And he's now a consultant as well. He got his first client because he was talking about what he was doing in the hotel at the time. And his first client called him and said, we want you to do exactly what we've just seen on LinkedIn in our hotel. Actually, I don't want a job because I want to do my own thing, but I'll come and do it as a consultant for you. And they took him and they're still working with him today. That was during COVID. One of my biggest mistakes over COVID was the perfect time to establish yourself online, because everyone was at home watching. Those of us who were working were doing loads of crazy stuff at the time, and it was just a great time to create content. And I didn't do it. So when I set up my own business, I was already behind because I was trying to find my first client, and it took about 3 months. If I'd have been asserting that authority beforehand, I might have had the same call as Steve, or I might have been ahead of the game of going to people. So my message on it is, it's never too early to start building your authority in where you want to be, when you want to do it. Put yourself at the center of your brand. So talk about you and your experience and what you think. Loads of different ways to do it. There's audio, right? I'm doing it now for a podcast. This will go out on our podcast that we're doing. So if you're not confident on video, talk on audio and put something out on Spotify, Apple, and all the rest of it. The reason I love podcasts is every time I issue a new episode, it goes to the top of your feed, right? So my brand, because it's all over the thumbnail, comes on to anyone who subscribes. It'll hit the top of their feed on Apple and Spotify for free every single week. That brand exposure is huge, right? You just have to get people to subscribe. That's back to the bit about talking about you and getting the expertise and all the rest of it. There's images. You take pictures, you see a great event, you see a great thing that's sitting in your niche, you take a picture, you put a comment about it, you talk about it. It can be as simple as that. It can go on LinkedIn, it could go on Instagram, it could go wherever. Then there's video. You get a video, you talk, and you just go. You can do it pretty raw, or you can do it professional. Nowadays, with Instagram, with CapCut, with Canva and all this, it's really easy to put something together that looks quite good. And then you've got writing. So you can just go newsletters, go on LinkedIn and write every day. There's loads of different things to do. And one of the big things, I hated video. I hated it. Hated my accent. Hated the way I looked when I was on video, because it's a little bit like double chin style. And Sean Walshep, the guy I mentioned, he was like, you need to make it cringeworthy content. And once you've done some cringeworthy content, it'll just become comfortable, because you'll be used to seeing your double chin and your bad accent and all the rest of it. Be uncomfortable, make cringeworthy content, get yourself out there, put yourself center of the brand. And where to start is who you are and what you believe. And then once you've told people what you believe, it's really easy then to create other stuff around what you believe, because it's just an add-on from that. And in my opinion, not just my opinion, but a lot of other people's opinion, building a personal brand has never been more important, because no longer are people getting jobs or getting opportunities based on CVs. Because it's far easier to go on social media and find someone and see what they're really like than it is to open a PDF and read a CV that's been written on ChatGPT. Probably. So I want to give you a real life example. I did a call just before I launched Auden in August 2022 with a guide who was ahead of me on the journey 2 years. And we were just having a chat about what I was going to do. And he asked me the question, what are you going to do for marketing? How are you going to tell people about Auden? My answer was, I'm going to get a PR company, I'm going to hire an agency, I'm going to do some adverts. And he went, how much is that going to cost? 10, 15 grand? He said, what if I told you you could do better than that for free, but it might take a bit longer? I'm a Yorkshireman, we're tight, like Scots. I was like, yeah, I'll keep the 15 grand in my pocket, and because I didn't have the 15 grand. I'll add the 15 grand and I'll do it for free. He said, go onto LinkedIn and for 90 days, write about what you do. And then from there, you'll have a habit and keep writing, and eventually people will start buying from you. So on the 31st of August, 2022, I wrote this post that said, Auden is here. This is what we can do. 3 things that get in the way of restaurant entrepreneurs: time, expertise, and resources. And this is how we can deal with it, and this is why you should buy from us. And the message was crap, right? Because we've shown before that the niche wasn't there. But the message was there, and I started writing every single day on LinkedIn. That was the 31st of August, 2022. This was as of yesterday. This touchscreen keeps getting me, right? This was as of yesterday, and I had not paid for a penny on LinkedIn. I've not done any ads. I've not done any ads on Instagram, no ads on Facebook, no Google ads, nothing. I've done no paid stuff. All I've done is invested time. 2,755 people, 2.755 million people have seen my brand and seen me and know what my message is about hotel F&B. And that's really important. And you cannot buy that for free. It's time. So it's a big opportunity sitting there. And if I told you that only 1% of people on LinkedIn right now is producing content, that creates a huge opportunity. So this is what LinkedIn has done for me over the last 2 years for free. We've had 6 figures in revenue from the platform. So this isn't other stuff that's come from network and all the rest of it. But LinkedIn has generated 6 figures in revenue for Auden. We've had projects in 2 different continents from it, and it'll be 3. Fingers crossed if we get the signature back in the next couple of weeks. We've had podcast appearance opportunities, free marketing into other people's networks and other people's reach. I have an advisory role with a training platform called Blend, an amazing training platform that's basically developed for deskless learners. So it's basically you can create a training module the same as you would do upload a TikTok video. Really amazing brand. It's helped me refine my message because I talk about it every day. I talk about my message every day. I talk about the problems that people are facing every day. So then when I go into a pitch, I'm much more competent. On someone who comes through LinkedIn who's been a follower, I'll close a deal in 2 calls. If they haven't come through LinkedIn and it's a referral, it'll probably take 3 to 4 because that expertise is there. People, once they've got in touch with you, it's more about price than it is expertise because they already know you've got the expertise. And then in October, we're going to be doing a keynote to 2,500 hoteliers in San Antonio about F&B, hotel F&B. And then there's loads more that was a bit more boring, but they're the big hitters that go with it.
Can I ask you something? Yeah, I know maybe it's a weird question or something, but we are living an era full of technology, new apps, the ChatGPT and everything. Did you feel any second that your position as a consultant have been replaced by that? Did you feel like the technology and everything, internet, all these apps, it's gonna steal your ideas and your position? Because all the questions that we have today, we just put the question, explain what we need, and we receive the answers immediately. So why do I need a company? Yeah, why do I need you to help me? Because, yeah, you give me examples from real life, but did you feel like you were a threat any second with the new technology and new opportunities that now?
Good question.
No. One,
it's a great question, but no. That's 2 reasons why. First of all, why would ChatGPT never replace a copywriter? It can't write an emotion.
So we're accounting still on
task and fact. So I can go there and I can put in a sales mix, and we do this. We use AI to speed up what we do. We get a sales mix from a client. It could be 6 months, and it could be full of they're a mess. We can put it in ChatGPT 4, and we'll say, give us the top 5, the bottom 5, give us an analysis. Where should we be focusing on? And it'll push it, give us it in a table format, and it'll spit it out. We copy and paste it into a presentation. We check it. We analyze it. But before, we would have spent 2 hours deep diving into Excel spreadsheets, formatting, formulas. ChatGPT does all of that. What I'd say about tech is an enabler to help people do the jobs more efficiently. In hospitality, tech should put people back on the floor because it makes menial tasks quicker and easier and puts them where they should be. So that would be my first one on that. The second one on it is tech can't implement. And one of the biggest issues that we find with our clients is they can't implement properly. They have the ideas. They can blue sky think. They can sit in a room like this and they can scribble on noteboards and all the rest of it. But the doing, that's where they're failing. And tech can't do. It's an enabler. So people will still need us, for sure. Tech can't go into a hotel and go, that space there that is a storeroom full of tables could be a podcast studio that you can make about $3,000 a week off your profit. So that's I think tech's starting hard to make things easier. And we use ChatGPT a lot. We've trained our ChatGPT and we use it for clients. We use it to help with like elevator pitches and text and narrative and stuff like that. But it speeds up what we do. It means we have to hire less people, pretty much. So I thought it'd be really good to start today. Because there's no better time than today to start, because you guys can build in public. You can start today and you can keep building over the next few weeks and the rest of this course about what you're doing to get yourself into a position to launch afterwards. This is a post that I repurpose quite a bit, right? I'll tell you why. First of all, I don't always have time to write new content. Secondly, if I'm picking up followers every week, then those followers won't have seen the old stuff. So I reckon sitting within my content every week is at least 3, if not sometimes, if I'm being lazy, 4 posts that I've posted before, right? So every 2-3 months I post this one, which is, if you're new to my content or you just need to catch up, this is a little about me, what I believe, and how I help hoteliers every day. And then I go in and I tell the story about what we do. And I thought it'd be a really good exercise for you guys to sit there now and post on LinkedIn who you are, what you believe, and what you're going to tell people over the next few weeks. And then I want you to tag me in. I'm going to follow you and I'm going to hold you accountable over the next 6 weeks. Is it how long to the end of the term?
We step up.
6 weeks. So at least one post a week about what you're doing and what you're building and how you're doing it, and build that personal brand.
I have another question for you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Awesome. Don't try and get away from the exercise.
I already done that.
Perfect.
My question is, how do you manage your time to do all these activities?
Do you feel any time of burning out or something like that? Do you have actually time for you to relax in order for you to actually focus on what you do?
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's a lot.
No, it's hard. It's hard to juggle. I'm strict with time in terms of my hour meetings gone down to 45, my 45 gone to 30. I don't, like, sometimes they'll get to know you, like, all the rest of it is 15 minutes. Let's get to know each other. Do we like each other? Let's arrange another call if we think this is going somewhere. So being much more strict on time. But I diarise everything. Time with my kids, the 30 minutes football with my son on a night, when I go for lunch with my wife. And it's funny, I was walking up to Pret this morning before I came. I was walking past an office on the other side of the road. I won't say who it is because I'm in trouble. And God, I looked through the window and all these people sat there. It was like 9:10, so what? Probably been at the desk 10 minutes. Jesus, it looked like a wake inside this place because they're all sitting there in front of the things, real bad postures and all the rest of it. And that was me. And now I have freedom of time. So I work when I want, I do what I want, I can go on holiday when I want, I can go home tonight at 4 o'clock, spend a few hours with the kids, and then work after. So actually I found that time's become much more efficient because it's much more free, because there isn't an expectation around when I should be working and when I shouldn't be working.
But then when you actually have your free time, is it like in the back of your head, like, when I need to do this, or oh, I have a meeting in like 30 minutes, or do you feel the pressure? Because of course you're like the owner of the company.
And it depends, right? It depends on what's going on at the time. It's this week we've had 2 or 3 projects to get out. So last night, I think it was like 12:30, finishing the projects and stuff. So some nights you have that, but it's not always like that now. And because, first of all, when I'm sitting up until 12:30 now doing a project, I'm getting paid and I'm seeing the whole value of it. Whereas before I would have been like building value for someone else, and you're an employee number, you're a commodity, and etc. etc. Then when I was living in Dubai, I knew the Emirates check-in desks better than I knew my son who'd just been born. But that's no word of a lie. I was on a plane 2 or 3 times a week. I knew Dubai airport down to a T. I was traveling. I was sometimes going to Riyadh for a day. It was like 23 hours, and that's hard. Doing what you're doing now and having that freedom is like nothing else. I tell a story about how the first time when we set up Auden, I was going to my kids' parents' teacher parent thing, and it was a Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and we were walking down the street with my wife, and I was like, this is a really surreal feeling. She said, why? I said, because this time last year when I was in a job, I would have been either feeling really guilty checking my phone all the time, or I wouldn't be here because I felt guilty to leave work, or something would be going on, or CEO would have put something in my diary. And when I had my business, it was like, no, I'm going to turn the phone off for an hour. I'm going to go and I'm going to be present. I'm going to, for the first time, listen to how my son's doing at school. Yeah. And it's a huge mentality shift to be like that. And that's not against jobs. There is some great people out there and stuff like that, but there is an element of freedom with doing your own thing that's really good. We've got time to write down who we are, what we believe.
Definitely.
Do it.
Get on it, guys. LinkedIn.
Yeah. Get on
It's all
LinkedIn.
post.
And it's me. One take from Scott. Yeah. one team Scot. Normally I don't mind, but on here you'll get the wrong one and some poor guy will get blasted by a lot of people. So let's do it quickly. Don't think about it too much. Just go with what you believe. From the heart, who you are, what you believe. Go on LinkedIn, tag me into the post, and let's do it. Is there any other questions while you're doing this, or do you want to concentrate, or some people might have done
How
it?
should you start?
How should you start?
The post, yeah, I've never posted.
What have I done here, right? If you're new to my content, do you know how I'd start? I'd go, I'd say, I'd do something like, this is testing my writing skills now, but I'd go, I'm breaking the place as well. I would say something like, you might not have seen me post on here for a while or before, but I just want to tell you a little bit about who I am, what I believe, and what I'm working on.
Scott, while they're doing their LinkedIn.
Yep.
Particularly when you arrive into the hotels now and you notice, particularly as we said, some of the restaurants in the hotels wouldn't be as dynamic as an independent restaurant.
Yeah.
What, from your experience and observations, why do you think that is? What are you noticing that's maybe lacking there, even if maybe the will is there? What are you noticing that's holding them back a little bit?
The first thing we do when we go into a hotel, and we've been given the project, and is we go around and ask about 5 guests what they think the restaurant is, and 5 staff what they think the restaurant is. And if all of them can't tell us the same thing, we know that there's a bit of an issue with the story.
Yeah.
And then from there, we start looking at why the story isn't clear, and we'll start asking questions. And then what will happen from there is you'll find that basically the story's being diluted, the concept's being diluted. So when you have an independent restaurant and pizza place, Mexican place, Chinese restaurant, it's really clear what it is. When you enter hotels, they start worrying about breakfast, they start worrying about this hotel guest wants this. Oh, but we have to do a Caesar salad even though it's a Mexican because the guest wants Caesar salad. And it starts getting diluted, and then all of a sudden, no one really knows what it is. Yeah. So we had this recently in a project, and it was a cafe. And if you read the website, it said Middle Eastern. The only dish on there that was Middle Eastern was hummus. And there was burger, there was like sandwich, there was steak sandwich. Like there was nothing Middle Eastern on it. So it's like, how do you expect the customers to get it if they don't know what they're coming for? So they come from a Middle Eastern cafe, but then they turn up and there's a burger. And the guests who were there were going to it was a member's place. Yeah. And they were just going to the local South African cafe down the road that was like really clear what it was. So what we did in there was we literally went in and we were like, okay, this is the story. This is what it is. And we turned it into an Aussie-inspired cafe. And we were really clear about it. It was just like, it's an Aussie-inspired cafe where families come to meet. And that was it. And that was what we drilled into the team. That's what we made sure went on social media, on websites and stuff like that. So often the story is the issue. The other one that we find is it all just becomes a bit functional and they lose the fun. So like the staff have turned off from it, the guests have turned off from it. The guests see it a bit of a service function as well, rather than it being like a real restaurant concept. Yeah. So when they're looking for restaurants, they'll start going to the guy down the road. But if they're in the room or they want a quick meal, they'll go there and they'll have a burger or whatever. So there's that. And then the last one, what I would say on it is what we find quite a bit is they benchmark themselves against the wrong people. So we'll say to who are your benchmarks, who are your competitors? And they'll start going, it's so-and-so restaurant in X hotel, so-and-so restaurant in X hotel, so-and-so restaurant. No, you're wrong. It's the pizza guy down the road. It's the Mexican guy down the road. It's the French brasserie down the road. They're the people who are your competitors. Yeah. And if you're a restaurant, you'd never compete. If I was in East London as a steak restaurant, I wouldn't compare myself to Hawksmoor as a concept. I'd be comparing myself to the guys locally. So I find that a lot.
Do you get involved in the purchasing?
Yeah. Goes back to my purchasing story, unfortunately. One of the biggest failures. But yeah, we get involved in the purchasing for a few reasons. One, a lot of the time we're in hotels, they go on cost-cutting exercises because things aren't working. And one of the things they do is they compromise on quality because they have to, if they're not hitting the revenue, they have to hit the budget food cost. And generally, the guy in head office has written the budget food cost to be much lower than what they can achieve. So they start cutting corners.
Which are your first 3 companies or 5 companies which you benchmark against when you're working on prices in London?
I can see he's got Premier Foods Wholesale on his jacket there. So
Yes.
so,
It really depends. It depends on what the concept is, what the hotel's after,
Would you recommend
where you
menu,
can
for example?
commercialize it.
Have you ever worked with the menu?
The menu.
Yeah. No?
No. What's the menu?
It is part of the Premier Foods Wholesale.
Ah, okay. No, no. No, we haven't. No, we
we're going
haven't.
to look Scott a little bit next week. We take a look at Ennismore.
Yes.
So in terms they have an F&B
Great
studio,
Yeah.
F&B studio in London here where they come up with their concepts. And then, so they come up with the concept, then they go to the location, and then they start blending in the sense of place, the location, what's going on. And it's more very smart with how they seem to be there. They take different angles to things.
Yeah, when I'm often asked about hotel groups who are doing it differently, they're often the ones that I talk about.
Yeah.
There's a great podcast episode with Mark McCulloch on his podcast with Jules Pearson, who's the global VP. And I know Jules. We worked together on when she was working with when she was doing a London on the Inside bit, not with Ennismore. And they put so much effort into researching what's the right concept that goes into each hotel. Everything's different. They don't have a cookie cutter approach at all, and they really focus on details. And then obviously they have the carte blanche side of things as well. There's very much kind of concept and creative. But I think the Hoxton's an institution. But if you start looking at some of the other brands like 25 Hours Hotels and stuff like that, phenomenal concepts and brands. So yeah, that's who really stand out.
They do quite a lifestyle approach in France. They do Rasputin nightclubs. So if you think about red silk leather, that kind of style, they do a really good, strong nightclubby concept, kind of cabaret, very smart the way they do it.
Like it was the Café de Paris, you know.
Yes, exactly. Really, really over the top. Yeah, no, we'll have it. We're looking at them next week.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Really good one.
See, it didn't really catch up in London that one. Because obviously we have the Café de Paris, which didn't have, I think, before the pandemic they closed.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't push things tons of prices, no? So I think it didn't really catch up for the start of having the dinner in the nightclub before the and everything else. So it's a bit, maybe if we're going to come back.
I think that some of their concepts are very suitable for the North American market. They've got that Californian vibe, that kind of style. But we're seeing slowly one hotel Mayfair would be an example of that kind of Californian plant-based vegan plant style coming to London and doing well. So we're seeing that kind of drift across a lot more.
The thing is the vegan side and all of the healthy side spiked up in London a lot in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I think everybody who wants to open a restaurant needs to speak about vegan, about healthy style, organic,
Yeah.
and so on.
Yes.
I read an article.
With all the trends.
Let me do the first one before I forget. Is I read an article and we put it as one of our top trends for this year. Is for the first time in a long time you have 3 generations of buyers, and all of them are very different. And I think the other interesting stat that comes from that is by 2030, over 50% of your customers are going to be Gen Z. So I think when you start looking at hotel brands now and looking at the new brands that they're bringing on and developing, there's no surprise that it's going down the lifestyle experiential route rather than the kind of grand dame hotels, because they're all getting ready for the social hub who we work with. They've got their model is a hybrid model, so they've got student accommodation one side, they've got hotel the other side, and it's linked by a massive F&B communal space. They're working on strategies now because student numbers are going to drop in 2030 because of the way the population has reduced from a birth perspective. So they're already working now on what the strategy is going forward. So I think it's really interesting when you're starting to see some of these big brands and where they're starting to take the new concepts of hotels, because I think that you can tell they're starting to look more Gen Z than they are the other side of the baby boomers. Yeah. And then, what was the other question, sorry? What was it? What was the question? You remember?
No, I lost it. It's okay.
How do you keep up with trends?
Keep up with trends. Yeah. Social media is one. We eat out a lot. We drink out a lot. We traveling for what we do is one of the biggest luxuries we have, because we get to go and see different. We get to go see how Paris does Italian restaurants, and we get to go see how they do Middle Eastern restaurants in New York and things like that. So traveling's a big one. And then use AI. We use AI to tell us what are the trends in Asia and what's going on, stuff like that, because it's a lot of people think it's one of these where it's write me a post to go on X or write me a blog or write me an essay. I actually can use it as a bit of a think tank as well. So because we've trained our ChatGPT, we can go in there and go tell us the trends in Asia that's in 2024, or what are the differences you've seen in hospitality in 2024 to 23. Because we've trained it in what we want to see from F&B and stuff like that, it'll give us pretty good indication of what's going on. So, yeah, there's nothing like seeing it in real life and experiencing it, touch, feel, stuff like that. But there's ways you can use.
And I think it's a very good point you make, Scott. And I think for students as well, I think it's always good to get out and see what's going on. You know, you don't need to go in and go and have a cup of tea or whatever. You don't need to spend big money, but it's always interesting to see what's happening. I don't know if you have any interest in the luxury sector, going out to sit in the peninsula for half an hour, or going out to the new properties or a new outlet that's set up. I think it's just a great. Again, you don't need to spend money. Just sit there for half an hour, observe, have a walk around. You get a great feel of the property, and I think it's really important as students that that's how you keep on trend, by going to the new openings. And there's some exciting new openings that have opened this year. There's some more to come as well. There's some new brands coming in to London as well. I was just looking, so there's different things happening around.
Definitely.
Is there any new opening that would have that kind of spark your interest, Scott, or anything that you would say is?
One hotel Mayfair has been the one that I think recently has been the one that stood out to me of being really different.
Which one?
For very much of the reasons, one hotel Mayfair. Just for a lot of the reasons that you've been saying. I think the cafe in the peninsula is a really good one as well to stand out when they were opening. When they were opening, they have like loads. I don't know if you've seen it, but they've got huge shelves behind. When they were first opening, it was full of champagne bottles, dummy bottles and things like that. I remember walking past thinking that's a really bold statement to make, considering you're going to be full of Middle Eastern guests. And if you go there today, it's all tea. It just goes to show
had to adapt.
they've got to adapt. So I think, the Peninsula's going through a really interesting time. They've got a GM from New York in, which I think has made some definite changes. Yeah, they're there, but we also keep an eye on independent restaurants as well as hotels. We keep an eye on those. I think there's some real Josephine's by Claude Bossy, I think, in Chelsea, is a really good one to shout out at the minute. But I think if you start looking at places like Babala, Kiln, Barbary, Palomar, all those type of guys that are going real authentic kind of cuisine is a really good, if you can't get to some of these places, is a great place to be. We went to Speedboat Bar for the first time the other week, and what they've done there in terms of replicating Bangkok, like a Bangkok bar, is phenomenal. Yeah. So again, there's ways now where you can get to travel without traveling as well. So.
I think in the hotels as well, I think it's opening the Six Senses will be interesting to see how that's.
Yeah.
There is another
Out of town as well, mate.
Bayswater.
Yeah, Bayswater, yeah. But it's right at the end, isn't it, of the...
Yeah, it's unusual. It is a funny part of town.
There are a few hotels as well around Shoreditch that will open. I think the Art Hotel by Park Plaza.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, I think that's just open. Is it just opened? Or...
A month ago, probably?
Yeah. 100 Shoreditch is probably one of my favourite
yeah,
hotels in
well.
London now. If I was staying in London, that's where I'd want to stay. I just think
Is it
again,
different
it's so
concept, isn't
different. Yeah. It's just different, right? It gives you a different feel. You're in East London. It stays real true to the core. It's my type of hotel, and I think that's back to that bit about when new generations now are travelling. They want more of that authenticity, and they're buying into the big brands less. Think what you like about the big brands, but they spend a lot of money to understand what should be getting created next. So when you start seeing it, is it always the best execution? Arguably, maybe not. But the idea is something that is coming for sure. It's really interesting. All done.
Ask something.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part of leading your business?
Um,
Because of course, like,
Cash.
everybody's like,
No, but seriously, cash flow is tough. Just because I sign a contract today for X amount of pounds, like when am I going to get paid, and how do I juggle the thing? And then they might not pay on time.
Yeah.
So if I told you what was outstanding on my debtors list right now, you'd probably sink in your chair. So managing cash is tough. especially when you've got family, you've got mortgage and stuff like that. I did it late. I do it early when you've no responsibility and all you have to do is a cheap rent and stuff like that. But yeah, I think cash flow is probably one of the most difficult. And then at times it can be really hard. Like, you can win great accounts and stuff like that, and you can celebrate like you've won the FA Cup. But the days where you lose those people or you don't have stuff coming through the door, it can be tough, and you have to like really go deep to find the inspiration to keep going.
That's
I
like,
think this is probably like the
this is,
It's difficult.
as I, on this model is creativity,
Yeah.
finding ideas, analyze them, put them in place, see if we have a result. I consider myself a person that doesn't have ideas.
Yeah.
So how do I turn over? How can I get more creative? How can I don't know, get the power and the confidence to talk about my idea? So
What's your idea? What?
I don't know.
Tell me what you
So
love. Tell me what you want to do.
I love people. I love to work for people. I like to work with people.
Training, development.
Maybe I think what I would need is more confident myself, or
Yeah.
to get my voice more loud. But even though if I have an idea, I prefer to turn to my colleague instead of presenting to yourself. So, how did you find? Is it because all the experience you had? Maybe it's because talking with people, having this session
Experience
with us.
helps, right?
It
Experience
helps.
helps. But what I'd say is, all my career I was in operations, so I never had to sell. I had to sell wine and restaurants and things like that. That's easy, right? I never had to sell me, and I never had to sell something to earn a living. And I found it, and probably still today, I find business development the most difficult part about what I do, because I'm not a seller, I'm not a salesperson. The way I've found that to be easier is to do this every day, because I find this much easier than doing cold emails or trying to go to networking events and give business cards. Because when I was in operations, I didn't want to hear from people like me. I didn't want cold calls. I didn't want like selling to events and stuff like that. And half the time I wasn't at those events, I was on the pass. So I went on LinkedIn every day and just started talking about what I love and what I do every day and why people should buy from me. And then got people engaged. And then, like I said, when I go on calls with people now, I don't necessarily have to sell because I've already done it organically. So I'm a bit like you. I wouldn't stand up in a room and go, you should buy from me because X. But I'll go on LinkedIn and go, this is what we're doing today in a project and this is the success we've had, or hotel's biggest challenges they face in F&B. Oh, by the way, if you like what you've seen, give me a shout in DM. I find it easier. So I think that's back to this thing about talking about what you want to do every day, what you love, how you can help people. And then I did so much for free when I first started. Or I did it for hardly anything because I wanted the experience and I wanted to learn, because it didn't matter the 20 years that went before it. People like, never, what have you done for yourself? So it was getting those like free jobs and those little jobs in to start building the experience and knowledge that you could talk about. So just to finish, I know it's moving on, but my 5 takeaways from today would be: understand your niche, experiment and innovate, find your community, build your personal brand, and start today. The last one probably the most important. And I put 2 books that I think would be really good if you've got Spotify, get on audiobook or whatever it would be. The first one, Day Trading Attention, it literally came out last week by Gary Vee. I've been listening to it. Really interesting in terms of that personal brand and building on socials. And he talks a lot about the new way now to sell is to get attention. That doesn't matter if it's on social media, if it's on a billboard, if it's you talking. How do you get attention? And how do you get that from people who are going to buy from you? So it's not a social media book per se, but it's about how you can stand out from the crowd. The other one is building a story brand from Donald Miller. This takes you through a 7-stage process of how to build a brand, and he does it almost like the script of a movie. And he'll take you through it, and there's an exercise that goes with it. You see my wanky description in 2022, right? That was after I'd read this book. That was before I read this book. And I changed my whole website based on this book. I was about to go live and I stopped the whole thing and I changed it because of this. And it's just the way it talks about making your message really clear and stuff like that is honestly, if you want to do your own thing, and even if you don't, if you want to do it for someone else, it's a really good book. And there's a lot of like stuff that goes with it that you can build as well. But yeah, I thought that'd be really interesting. And then, yeah, join my community, tag me in over the next few weeks, tag me in, please. I'll hold you accountable, I promise. Yeah. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Of course.
What would be your main advice for entrepreneurship, like people who want to enter this industry? I'm asking you like from my personal point because like I'm really interested to start my own business in events. So any advice would be helpful.
I guess in terms of this industry, what makes you stand out from the crowd, especially in events, right? Like, there's lots of people doing events. What makes you different, and what can you bring to people that makes their event even more special? That would be the questions that I would ask. I tell you what I love about this industry. What I love about this industry is it has a low barrier entry. So we can bring people in from anywhere, any education, any walks of life. Like people can do what we do. And I think that gives a huge opportunity for people to do things differently. And we're naturally an industry where people work and do jobs. I think there's lots of opportunity where you can do other things that can have such a good impact. So back to what we do now, it's like that message. It's about how you can make an impact, how you can stand out. Why are your events better than other people's? They're all the things that we did. We just won a contract with Live Golf to be their official catering partner. And the reason we won it, we got our first event in August. The reason we won it is because we have access, because of a strategic partnership that was set, we have access to over 80 brands, and we've been able to get a whole food village built with food trucks that are all big brands from London and put it into a food village and no one else could. So we won the account on the fact that we were a one point of contact and we could bring the best brands that made them look great, and ultimately they're on a revenue share. So because they're coming to buy X burger and X pizza, people will spend more because of their perception of that brand, so we'll make more revenue. So our USP to Live Golf was we could bring brands that no one else could, and we were going to be a point of contact that meant they didn't have to deal with individual operators.
It was the prices, I suppose, in that Live Golf contract as well. Massive.
It's an event, right? You're only each prices, but the perception of what I've paid for a piece of Pilgrims is far more than the guy in my high street. So if you put Piece of Pilgrims, for example, it's not Piece of Pilgrims, but if you put Piece of Pilgrims into that event, the guests will pay more of a premium to them than they would Mr. John's mobile pizza guy.
Because the price is lower prices than everybody else on that Live Golf. It wasn't that you had higher prices.
Explain that more.
So you undercut everybody else.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't undercut. I was more expensive. Honestly. I was more expensive than everyone else. I answered the problems that they had, which was they didn't want to do it themselves and do a load of vendors, and they couldn't get access to brands. I wasn't cheaper. I wasn't. For the brands. People pay more for, if they can't do it themselves, they'll pay for it, right? Yeah. And that's not always one thing, because I've done jobs that you look at and go, why are you even getting out of bed? But sometimes you'll fill that problem that people will pay a premium for.
Brilliant. Listen, thank you very much, Scott. We'll leave it
pleasure.
there because you've been very generous with your time and some great questions there. So well done, everybody. So really, I think it's been very interesting.
Thank you for listening to Hospitality Huddles. I really hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you did, please leave a review wherever you might listen to your podcasts. It really helps the show, and it's only going to take a couple of minutes. If you don't want to miss a future episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get it into your feed as soon as each episode is released. Hospitality Huddles is brought to you by Auden Hospitality, helping hoteliers to think differently to create F&B outlets that their guests will love. Learn more about how we help hotel operations every single day by visiting our website at audenhospitality.com. This has been Hospitality Huddles, where hospitality meets conversation, one huddle at a time. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.